So like there's a lot of joy and success and winning that's going on and around, and I don't think anybody stops to be like, hey, we've done something cool. And it just becomes a natural way. Then you start getting fancy and you're like, well, yeah, this is what we do, and you just forget that you need to celebrate yourself. Like, yeah, of course I did that. Yeah, we brought down a major company who was racist. Yeah, we did that. So what? This is the Dope Black Dad podcast. My name is Marvyn Harrison. This is the award-winning Dope Black Dads podcast. Marvyn, how does it feel to be award-winning?
I mean, the fact that we beat Cookie Monster and Big Bird and Grouch and all those other Sesame Street characters, I think, that's definitely going on my CV.
That's the only reason why I'm emotional. So if anyone doesn't know, we won a Webby Award, which is quite a big industry award for all online content of all formats. And we won Best Podcast, Kids and Family. But the bit that really got me emotional is that we beat Sesame Street. And me growing up, Sesame Street was the biggest thing in the block. So my inner child is loud right now.
What do they say when your heroes become your rivals? Or
your idols become your rivals.
That's it. That's what happened.
That's that real talk, boy. The thing is, it's like, I don't know how you internalize the podcast, because we obviously do this and we just talk anyway, and we obviously are friends. But like, does it ever feel different when those things happen? Does it mean anything different to you?
I mean, I think it's a good point. I was thinking of the same kind of issue. Like from my side, we just record a podcast. We're just having a conversation as we do. And I forget that people are going to listen to it sometimes and they're going to get value from it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it does seem quite surreal, but it's nice to know that it's acknowledged that it does provide value for people and that they do benefit from it, because otherwise it'll just be us having a conversation and no one will get anything from it.
That's so real. You know what's funny is I feel like, because we've had an incredible year, last 2 years, but everyone in Dope Black is doing really, really, really well. Personally, well, not say personally, but like in their actual professional life and then in Dope Black. Yeah. So like there's a lot of joy and success and winning that's going on and around, and I don't think anybody stops to be like, hey, we've done something cool. And it just becomes a natural way. Then you start getting fancy and you're like, well, yeah, this is what we do, and you just forget that you need to celebrate yourself. Like, yeah, of course I did that. Yeah, we brought down a major company who was racist. Yeah, we did that. So what? Maybe we should celebrate those things. What have you been up to anyway? Because I haven't seen you. And so, by the way, the podcast that you did when I was on holiday was out of this world. I was thoroughly enjoying.
Thank you. Humbled.
Yeah, bro. The teaching one about the guy from Birmingham was just, there was so many nuggets.
Forbes, yeah. I mean, I can't lie. It felt daunting without you being here, knowing that we had to hold down the fort with this award-winning podcast. But yeah, me and Otis came together with the help of Chloe as well. And I think we just knuckled down, and I think it just shows that it works. I think the success of an idea or of a business is that when it can work when you're no longer there. So the fact that you were able to step away and have your retreat, and it still worked and you still executed it, I think shows that you've left something that has made its mark. We can carry the mantle for you whenever you need us to.
What was the second one about again? I'm trying to remember now. It's just eluding me. What was the one?
So it was about mortality. That was quite a heavy one. Yeah, wow. That was interesting. I think I mentioned on the podcast as well, like I had no idea how it was going to go. It's a little daunting because you don't really have conversations about mortality. Yeah. But it flowed nicely, and I think it just shows me that we can normalize those conversations and have them with our friends, with our family, with our loved ones, and it shouldn't be such a hurdle and something so awkward. It should be something that we should normalize. Yeah. Bruv, how was your retreat? It was so good, man. It's a weird one. So if anyone doesn't know, I went and learned Vipassana meditation, and it's in a Dharma Pataka center. The one I went to was in South Africa, and is in Western Cape. Really beautiful surroundings. Like I posted a picture of it on my Instagram, and I'll tell you more about that in a sec. But like that visual has such depth and meaning to me. I'm gonna get it put up in my house because it just literally it brings back the most powerful memories. So, Dharma Pataka Center is a place that teaches you about Vipassana meditation. Now, I'm not going to try and to go into detail about what that is because one, I think it's really nice to discover those things for yourself and go out and actually find it taught by the people who do this all the time. But also, I feel like there's something about the discovery in the moment of it. Like, you can figure out what Vipassana is because there probably is online and it's really ever. But some of the true deeper values of Vipassana I don't want to ruin it for people. But it's an incredibly beautiful and very simple concept about meditation.
and how to do it and do it powerfully. But it was just one of those things where I think I was so busy, tired. So like going in, I was unwell, like mentally and physically for sure. Right, yeah. And it's something that I say quite candidly, but I knew, like, and I accepted that I had made myself unwell. Yeah. And in my mind, I was like, if I can get through 2 more months, then I could really take a break. And in those 2 months, so many fires were happening and so many things were going on that I just wasn't really happy with, that it was actually accelerating negativity by trying to do it in a time where, you know, and I think about it, and I think in my meditation, in a reflection of one of my meditations, I understood where the beginning started for me. And so I want to say March, so COVID just started, so this is March 2020. And it was really, really interesting because my friend, like, COVID had started and people had things have been going on, but it wasn't landing. It felt very much out there, very abstract.
Sure.
And then my friend rang me, and he's just a very similar friend, just like you, someone that you just love and appreciate, and you're just like, I like this person, and I've known him for like 10 years, maybe longer now, maybe close to 12 years, but I just really love this person. And I hate going to South London. I'm sorry for South London people. When I go, I treat it like I'm going abroad. Like I treat it like I get there, I ring everyone I know that's from South and be like, I'm in South, who is around? Because I don't plan to be back. And so I would go see him in South, and his mum would be in the kitchen, and one of those super jovial, warm, loving black mothers where you're just like, when we think of the archetype of black mother, when we say my mum's amazing, we think of that type of woman. And so she would always be in the kitchen. She's like cooking, do you want anything? Offering you so many things, and you're just like, oh, I'm cool, I'm all right. Dinner's on the table if you want it. And then we'll go play football, and then I'd come back. And these are like 10, 15 minute increments. But you know when like you know a woman like that exists, it makes you happy. You don't even need to speak to her.
Counts and it has an impact. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I suppose we all probably have those somewhere, like an aunt or someone, but she felt like that. And so he rings me in March and says his mum's passed away. And I remember the moment he told me, and it was from COVID, the moment that he told me, I felt my body harden.
Right, sure.
Like and the only way I can explain it is that you know in those terrible programs where people turn into stone, and it feels like it's a gradual, terrible graphic effect.
Yeah.
I felt my body like literally just like hold and tense up, and I was so devastated. And I remember crying afterwards, and I cried for about 20 minutes, and then I was like, do you know what? I need to get out of this house, because at that point nobody could leave their house. I was at that point, whenever that was, it might have been April, and I remember saying like, I'm leaving that house, and I'm not going anywhere. So I'm going out right now. So I headed out, went to the park, and I was walking around, and I just remember feeling like, but why? And it reminded me of my godmother who passed away when I was like 12. And she was like the happiest, warmest. You know when like you have the good godparents and everyone's like, your godparents are the best. And I was like, well, you know, they are the best. And so when she passed away, and she passed away from cancer, it really like changed how I see the world. And I remember that moment. And so that happened. And I think I lost a bit of empathy that day.
Okay. Yeah.
And I put some armor on to get through some things. And it was really, really troubling me. So that happened, and then maybe 2 months after my gran passed away, and we ultimately watched her pass away. So she had I think it was Alzheimer's, but her memory was going, and she couldn't really remember us at points. So you watched that decline happen over a few months, and at that point we knew it was starting to get sad and bad, and there was probably a shorter timeline on it. And I think we wanted her to make it to her birthday, but I don't think she didn't actually in the end. She passed away right at the beginning mid-May. And so we were counting down this process with my gran, and I remember, we'll see her almost every day. And like, I remember there was one day where, oh my Lord, like I'm really moving myself. But I remember there was one day where she was pretty bad, and then she just started busting joke, like out of nowhere. So her memory wasn't great, and she was almost pretty much very still and wasn't saying very much. And then just one day she just came out perked up, and was just like busting joke with us. Wow. And we were like, yo, she's going to get better. All we have to do is be here because like clearly our presence, and you think you're defying science. But, you know, I don't want to characterize what was happening, but I think what it felt like what was happening was it was like the last burst of energy, one of the last bursts of energy that you may have. And so, and then when she finally passed away, I couldn't cry. And I felt that feeling again. I just got a little bit harder, a little bit more of a shell on, you know, get through it all. And in fact, I think that hardness turned into anger at that point. It wasn't like just sadness. It was, it was real anger. Like, and obviously you said you've gone through loss. Does any of that resonate with you? Like, how did you process it?
100%. I think like this reminds me of a story when you mentioned about your godmother passing when you were 12. I think when I was 11, I had my father in my life, but other than my father, I've got 2 older sisters, and they were like my idols growing up. You know, my sisters are respectfully, they're like one's 10 years older than me and one's like 7 years older than me, so it was quite a big gap. And with my sister, who's 7 years older than me, she had a boyfriend at the time who was like my older brother. That's how I saw him. I knew him for, I mean, you know, when you're younger, things last forever, but it was probably about a year or maybe just over a year. But yeah, one day my sister came home. I never forget, she came home on the Sunday and she was just crying, and I'd never seen my sister crying. She was crying. My other sister was with her, brought her home, and she just found out that her boyfriend had been murdered at the time. So I was just 11, and I just found out that he'd been murdered. I'd been talking to him on a Friday. We'd been planning things we're going to do, go play football, go do this and that. And then I found out that he had died. And exactly the same thing happened. I think from 11 years old, I felt myself kind of putting on a suit and saying, okay, you know, life isn't fair, you know, and I cried at the time. And then after that, I just thought, you know, what does crying do? What's the point in crying? Does it really change anything when what's happened has happened? And then, like you said, other traumas and other issues that I experienced going on throughout my life just hardened that armor. And funny enough, I think one of the things that helped to take the armor off was becoming a father, because you can't have the armor on anymore and be a father and kind of do it successfully.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you said, it just brought it back. And I mentioned in an earlier podcast, I lost my mum about seven years ago now, and she also passed of cancer. And it was the same thing. Watching someone decline is a very hard thing to go through, and you feel as though I need to be strong for that person in the moment, but you can neglect yourself. And then when it's all said and done and you now are moving on with your life, you realize you could be a bit colder, a bit harsher, and part of your heart kind of has died. So yeah, I completely empathize with what you're saying there. It's a lot to go through. How did you feel your retreat helped? What was it able to do for you in terms of unpacking some of that?
Yeah, so I think because I think about the context of 2020.
Yeah.
So yes, we had like Ahmaud Arbery, we had COVID, we had Amy Cooper, we had George Floyd, we had the protests.
Yeah.
We had my friend's mum passing away, and then we had my gran passing away.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is all now, this is basically March to June. No, January to June, all of those things. And I realized that I was starting to internalize these things in a really unhealthy way. Yeah. So I never watched George Floyd, the video. I never watched it.
Yeah, same.
And I didn't watch all of Ahmaud Arbery. I saw him running or walking on the road and them chasing him. Then I turned that shit off. I watched Amy Cooper, and there was something deeply triggering about watching a white woman do that, because I feel like I know that energy. And so I just realized that I was absorbing a lot of things, but I thought I was fine. And I never identified it at the time. I was like, when people would be like, oh, how are you doing with COVID? I was like, no, it's fine. You know, it's just normal for me. It's business as usual. Da, 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 da. Like really holding this, like, you know, I'm too tough to be impacted. And then, so that's like June. And then the summer happens, obviously still protesting. So I'm on TV, I'm doing talks, I'm doing speeches at Black Lives Matter, protest rallies, I'm doing press every day. I'm talking about how to talk to your kids about racism. I'm just doing all this stuff. We were hosting Zoom calls at one point every day. We were working on a thing called All Black Coalition, which was about bringing all the black movements together under one banner. And I was doing that. That was 2 days a week. And then I was doing this other thing, which was about defining language of anti-blackness. And so I was working on that every week. So I was doing way too much. Plus I had a job still at that point. And we launched Dope Black, CIC. So I'm doing all of this stuff, and at that point, it still felt amazing, and it didn't really feel like it was moving me or hitting me. But I was just like, it's cool, man. I can operate at that level if I have my tools, if I have some safety, if I know what I'm doing. I can just like, blah, blah, blah. So everything was like super light touch, but responsible to a lot. And then we got into September, and the protests were winding down, and companies were like asking me, like, Marvyn, how do we want to change our company? So I developed this thing in my head. I was like, look, we could do. This is what happens when you ask me questions when I have a day of space. I was like, all right, so what we're going to do is develop this thing called cultural transformation, and what that looks like for companies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right. So a month later, I've launched another business. So that's 2 businesses in 4 months. And I launched Beloved, and Beloved is my diversity, equity, and inclusion agency, and we work with tons of global clients like Facebook and Google and Johnson & Johnson and Acast and lots and lots of businesses. So we support them with like training and educating their company, consultancy, insights. So we're launching this business, and like as soon as I say I've launched it on LinkedIn, we've got 368 people who have joined our webinar. We've got our diaries booked until December. So every day from between September and December, I'm doing like 6 to 8 1-hour consultation calls with different companies every day. Yeah. And so I'm working now 70 to 80 hours a week from then. And then plus there was Black History Month, so obviously I'm everywhere again. This is a little ridiculous. And then that carried on until the end of November, because some people defer Black History Month from October to November, and then Christmas. So I get to basically the 3rd week in December, and I'm flat, like I got nothing, and I'm trying my best to abandon tools, and the exhaustion. I probably was exhausted in the summer. By then, I was on minus. And so I'm just doing bare minimal. I'm starting to drink now. I'm like staying out so late to try and catch up with the rest of my days. I'm not doing great. I'm holding on with any vice that isn't illegal or deeply immoral, hugely possible, to get through my days. And then I just decided that I'm going to South Africa. Like I need a break. But then I get to South Africa, and a week in, I'm like, yo, this is like a hot Lambeth. Yeah, all the black people you can think of, with all the intellectual, super pseudo, amazing, powerful black people in this one country. And there's 3 major cities that it's like going between like Southwark, Lambeth, Hackney. And each one of them are just dope, but in a different way. So I'm going between Durban, Cape Town, and Johannesburg, and I'm like, loving it. And I'm like, yo, my team, we have to get out here, because if we don't bring Dope Black here properly, we're doing ourselves a disservice. So we end up launching Dope Black somewhere in the middle of December in South Africa. So all of that is going on, and then December comes, and then I couldn't get back in and out of the country. I go back in January, and I'm now not only unwell, what I know now is that I'm depressed. Like, I'm actually depressed. It's now like, I spoke to my therapist, and she says, it sounds like you're in depression, Marvyn. And I was like, no, no, it can't, no.
So what was it that you would say that you weren't able to identify? Was it because you were still like high performing, or was it a distraction? Yeah, okay. Because
at the same time, I'm winning clients, we're winning awards.
Yeah, definitely.
People are being helped. We're producing amazing stuff. Everything's running. My interpersonal relationships are not perfect, but they're working. I have to learn to adjust myself. I'm very informal. I'm very relaxed. Like I'm always busting jokes, saying dumb shit. I'm super chilled. But what I realized is obviously working across so many touch points, I just had to become more direct, more clear, like all these things that I don't actually enjoy doing. Like it doesn't make me happy. I want to be my own version of the CEO.
So would you say, in a way, was it like code switching? So where you have to, like you're saying, you have to assume a persona when you go into a room or engage in interaction, where you put in your true self in a box so you can be this, not character, but a persona that you needed to be to get the job done in that scenario?
Yeah, and that's really depressing. You have to understand, I came from a corporate world where I decided in 2017 that I'm not doing that no more. And I made it clear I'm not going to be an act to jigaboo for people for my job. And so I got out of that, got into my own companies, and then I ended up having to adjust myself as to who I am so that people respected the professionalism that I have. Because I'm so chilled, I was like, when I say mad things were happening, I'm like, some of the most disrespectful things I could ever think of were just happening. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, last year was really happy and jovial. I have a view on it, but I don't want to throw people under the bus, because not all the time those things were centered in me. They weren't about me. They weren't like I did something, and it wasn't always about that. Sometimes things are going on. A lot of the stuff that I mentioned earlier in the year was happening for other people. And so I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus or make a deal out of it, but there was some stuff happening where I was like, this is wild. And it didn't stop. It was getting more and more, and it got to a point where weekly I'm just having to like draw lines with people and be very, very strict, because I just think some of the stuff was just like not even in the spirit of what we were doing, not what we agreed to do, not even what we're about as an organization, not what I'm about. And I don't like being that person. So already I'm uncomfortable having to say those things, but it got to a point where it needed to be said. So that's all going on in December. So I come back January and I'm depressed. I'm like, I don't feel good. I'm not having fun. I'm not actually enjoying what I'm doing. I feel like I'm serving things and people and concepts, whatever that may be, that aren't centered in me and who I am. I'm doing it for other people. And now it's coming at not only, a cost of the things I want to do, but also a deficit. And so I get back in January from South Africa and I'm basically head down hiding. Like I'm hiding. I get back and I'm not really saying much. I'm not really communicating. I'm just laying low. And then we lost 3 people in January. We lost a friend from Dope Black Women in the US group called Simone Braciado, amazing woman. And we were just talking on Clubhouse all the time when Clubhouse was hot. And so we're talking on Clubhouse. She's talking about decolonize your life and has to decolonize. And I'm like, yo, decolonize your life. How do you do that? And she goes, Marvyn, it's a journey. And it's not something you can be taught. It's something that you have to look into your own life. And I was like, yo, we need to get you involved in things, because that's the type of thinking we need. Literally, so we're talking about that from December to January. And then 2 days of silence. We don't see her on the app. She died from I believe, I don't want to say what she died from, because I don't think it's fair to keep giving people's... I don't know if it's publicly known, but I don't know, it's not secretive, but I just don't want to do that. And so she passes away. And I cried. I think I cried for everything, but I cried for about 6 days. Like, it was brutal. And so,
especially as you said that you had just been talking to her, it's like it was unfinished. You're about to do so much together.
Yeah, and just everyone I knew her. All the grown up people that I know and I rate all knew her, and it was just like seeing all the testimonies. And I put it in a group, and all these people were like, "No way, not her." And it just compounds how much people mean. And it just really broke me again. And I think that for me was that happened at the beginning of January, and I came back in the beginning, middle to end of January. And then I think a week and a half after that, someone from Dope Black Dad's South Africa, and this is someone who we're just messaging really super infrequently. I don't know him very well, but the whole group knew him, and he really meant a lot. And it's just one of those people who has an incredible history in the black community in Johannesburg. Music, entertainment, lifestyle, culture. He's just one of those people that had done stuff, and he was very much revered. And so he passed away about a week and a half, 2 weeks later. And then another friend of ours in our UK group, Samuel Mensa, passed away also near the latter end, I think it was, of January at that point. And I just remember sitting, it might be early February, but I remember just sitting there in that time and just feeling like, where is this? This felt like a relentless onslaught of challenge. And this is when I now know, because when I say I was depressed when I came back, I didn't know I was depressed. I knew I was there was more. It was worse than what it was previously, and I only was able to potentially diagnose it in like probably April of this year through my therapy sessions, and then so we're almost getting back to it. And so now, so January comes, that's still going on, and I'm basically just trying to hide my best. And things are still going on, but I'm like, I won't even rise to the challenge of what those things are. I'm doing the bare minimum. So then January's done, February comes, and when UK's in lockdown again, which is like lockdown part 3 or 4 or whatever this terrible country in terms of managing COVID has been about. And then I decide I'm going back to South Africa, because we had an investor who wanted to get involved in this project we do called the Embassy, which is like a private members club for the black community. And so we go back to run the Embassy, we get back, and while we're there running the Embassy, the person who was doing our healing and doing our meditation and bringing that energy to us, Vanessa, she's from South Africa. She's an amazing woman, like incredible. She's doing a talk, and throughout the talk, she's like, she said something like, and people just need to realize that talking about the work is not doing the work. And you know, sometimes people say stuff that's relatively simple, but it lands with you. It's like it was timely. Resonates, yeah. And I was like, do you know what? I spend so much time saying to people what they should do and what I think, and you know, going on platforms and talking about these things, that actually I haven't done much work in a while. Probably since the most intense work I'd done was in 2018 I did Landmark, and I did some therapy just before. But since then, not really much, kind of spot therapy here and there, talking to counsellors, which is a big difference. One day we'll do a session on counsellors, therapists, psychotherapists, behavioural analysis, all those things, because they're different and they actually mean different things. Yeah. So anyway, so I realised that, and then she talks about this Vipassana meditation, this 10-day silent retreat. And I'm like, I've heard about this because my brother-in-law does it, my mother-in-law does it, and my aunt on my wife's side does it as well. And I'm like, I was like, oh, okay, this is the thing. Because when they said it, I'm like, absolutely not. You guys are mad. Yeah. But when your life is in that space, you know, therapy is sometimes quite a slow burn. It helps a lot, but it's not radical. It's quite a progressive thing that you do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I found at that point that it was really important to just sign up. So I signed up, and the first available date is like beginning of May. So now we're in maybe early April-ish, or late March, or April, early April, and the thing's in May. So I got 6 weeks to figure it out and to basically hold it down. And I'm just watching fires be created and things are happening that I can't explain. And so I'm just like, but I can't stop because everything's flowing at a super fast rate. So I spend like, I remember put my out of office on to say that I'm like going on holiday. And it basically was April. And I said, I'm not back until the end of June. Yeah. Because basically what I was trying to do is create space to take 10 days off. Yeah. So don't come to me with anything new. And everyone started freaking out like, you can't go on holiday. How can you go on holiday and don't tell? I was like, I'm not on holiday yet from you. I'm just on holiday from anything new and things that I don't want to do. So just relax. So anyway, so I'm doing that, and then I get to the Vipassana, and the march into the Vipassana was basically like, by that time I'm on fire. I'm just like, I'm on fire. I'm like, it's that bad. You may as well just put me in petrol, set me on fire, and left me, because the decline is just now rapid and violent. And I'm just like, this is not going well. And if you don't get me in this damn retreat right now, like I will have nothing left. And so I get into the retreat, and it's really interesting because immediately my fear was the silence. And that's not the important thing. Like that's not the challenging thing.
How was it when you get there? Is it like, okay, silent from now, or do they ease you into it? How does it work?
So you arrive.
Without spoiling too much.
No. So you arrive. And you arrive on the Wednesday, and then on the Wednesday you have to be in by 4, and then you can speak up until 7. So some people that have done it before, but I think there's a culture of like not trying to explain it to people too much and letting them discover it. Yeah. And so what what the kind of things they were saying is it's going to be tough, and food, and you'll find things that you really cling on to that really matter to you throughout the process. And the noises that you hear of the lions is real. They are lions.
Serious.
But listen, bro, the lion feeding is every day at 5:45 a.m. and 5:45 p.m. Yeah. So you're in bed meditating, or so you're probably meditating, but it's not like a growl. It's like there's beef right now. So it's multiple lions fighting over food, and so it's super loud. So anyway, so it's like lions are real, and that's it, man. Just time is interesting. You become have a relationship with time. So at 7 o'clock, silence begins. The gong goes, but nothing really happens other than just like I think then there's like an induction. So you do an induction, you go to bed. You wake up in the morning at 4:30 a.m. No, you get woken up at 4. You get half an hour to get your life together. You start meditating at 4:30 a.m. until 6:30 a.m. So that's a straight 2 hour. That is the best meditation of the day because basically you're like half asleep. And so being still and all those things is a lot easier. So you do 2 hours, then you have breakfast at 6:30, then that's an hour. And then at 7:30 you get an hour's rest in your room. Okay. Then at 8:30 you do a group meditation with the whole group. And then at 9:30 you go to your room and meditate for an hour and a half. And then at 11 o'clock you go and have lunch, which is mad because by then you've been up for like 6-7 hours. Yeah. So you go have lunch at 11. Then you get a rest at 12, and then you go, I think at 1 you meditate in your room for an hour and a half, and then at 2:30 you have another group session. Then at 3:30 you have another meditation in your room for an hour and a half. Then at 5 is tea, and when I mean tea, it's literally tea, there's no dinner, so it's like a cup of tea and fruit. Then at 6 you come back, so that's 5 to 6, and I think 6 you meditate in your room. 7:30 for an hour and a half. From 7:30 you do another group session. Then you do a thing called a discourse where the teacher who runs the practice or he explains things, concepts and approaches to you to guide your training and your meditation. Okay. And then there's another meditation for an hour, and then you go bed at 9. You go to your room at 9 and bed by 10. So you do that every single day for 10 days, bro. It's 11 and a half hours of meditation. Yeah. Wild. And so that's like super. You're going.
Sounds like one of those martial art films where you go off into the mountains and you come back. So you've actualized now, basically.
I'm a different person. That person doesn't exist from then. Okay. And so, what was really good? So like, I could tell you the phases that I went through, but I won't tell you the things that they teach you. So day 1 is like exciting but scary because you're like you have no idea what the hell this is. They could literally close the doors and then like everyone can get naked and you would be like, oh shit, I didn't read the pamphlet properly. So at that point anything could happen. So you know you're just monitoring and staring at stuff and like what does that mean? Who's moving? What's going on? Right. And then day 2 you realize you started and there's a lot of days to go. There's no hiding. So day 2 it's a bit slower. And you're a bit grumbly because the newness is gone and the task ahead is there. Day 3, my mind was just rejecting everything that was going on. I want to go home. Okay. I get it now.
I'm glad you said that as well because I think that would happen. Like, as you're intellectualizing, you're thinking, nah, this is foolishness. But it is your body just rebelling to what and your mind rebelling to what's going on, I guess.
Yeah, get me the hell out of it. Yeah. Why am I here? Yeah. This is a terrible idea. And what was really interesting is my brother-in-law was the voice in my head. Because I know he's done this. And he's someone that he's done a lot of work. He's been meditating for 10, 12 years or whatever. And he's just a G. Like he's such a G. And more so, I wanted just to talk to him about it in completion. And so that's what kept me there for about 5 days when I wanted to go home. So day 3, I want to go home. I'm starting to have little dizzy spells, but mainly I just want to go home. Day 4 was okay. Because I just like, when you have a day that's really, really bad, the day after is a bit more acceptance. So I started to accept. Okay. Day 5 now, I'm like, oh, I'm halfway. You perk up. I'm halfway, I've done it. I've done 5 days. But also, like, every time I like, day 5 still means you have 6 days to go because you have to include that day 5 as a day. So you're not actually halfway yet. But I'm gassed. Right. I'm gassed. I've done it. But then day 6 was like, half of that, but you're still going back down into a low. You're like, man, there's still a lot of days to go. Day 7 now, holy nish. I'm like hallucinating. I'm dizzy.
Oh, really?
I'm seeing lions everywhere, bro. Because I've now heard lions twice a day like the lions are free. In my head, they're like roaming around us. And I'm like, are they going to get me? I'm seeing my kids. I'm seeing like people that like I was friends with 10 years ago. I'm seeing like ex-girlfriends, and I'm just like, all these people I'm ringing when I get the hell out of it because I need to just double check on them. Are they okay? So I'm just seeing projections everywhere. I feel like my arms are like moving when they're not. And I couldn't sleep because like the way the teacher explained it was just like your mind is fighting the structure you're trying to give it. And so it's now projecting things at you to like tell you to run, to flee. And then obviously I sat down into them. Yeah, and it's like it started giving you really powerful feelings. And I was like, actually, you realise that if you think about that, then you think about the habits you have and how deep ingrained they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this is 7 days in. Yeah, so clearly like your brain is pushing you into behaviours really violently, and you've got to be really mindful of that. So anyway, so day 8 is like I'm recovering again from this hallucination, which was really, really violent. So I'm just glad to not be as bad as I was the day before. Day 9, I can see finishing line. So I'm gassed now. Day 9, I'm going home. This is amazing. I've done it. You know, like it's like shadow boxing, like, I can do it.
Straight, yeah.
And then day 10 isn't a full day. The day 10 is like wrapping up of the process. There's some final bits of education. There's some methods that they teach you in the end. And, you know, you start to like just learn a bit more about them. And then by like 4 o'clock, you can start talking again. So now we're talking to the guys only. The men and women are separated throughout all of this. And we're talking about it, and 2 guys left throughout the process. And in a weird way, you could tell it was coming.
Okay.
Like a defeated man, you know, in his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, and it was almost like it was almost like seeing a hurricane. It's beautiful, but also shit. Like, there's a hurricane, and I'm seeing them.
You know, when you watch like Bear Grylls or I'm a Celebrity or something, you can just see the ones that are broken and they're about to give up, and then as soon as the opportunity presents itself, they bow out. So
day 2 we lost a guy. Day 4 we lost a guy.
Yeah.
Shouts to them, because everyone went to the depths of their actual being. And the thing that really left with me after we started speaking to everybody is how much men want it, but they don't get any credit for it. And it's really difficult to sell that into people, because men, in terms of engaging other men, are really bad at it, like in a healthy way and in a loving way. Yeah. And women are just fed up. So by and large, they're just like, hurry up and do your fucking work, because you're killing us, you're raping us, you're underemploying us. I ain't got time to sit there for your micro steps, which is fair. It's the reality. But the thing is, the men that are then doing that work don't have a safety and a connection for the work that they're doing. And so they end up sometimes backtracking. But, so we do have to create intentional spaces where men can go and do this stuff and be supported and be celebrated for the progress that they make as human beings. Because I think that's a really important thing as a part of, yes, you do it for yourself, but it's nice when you have those things. It's an extra layer of support, I think.
I think, like you said as well, it's counterintuitive. Like every fibre of your being rebels because of that programming we've had. So it takes a strong willpower to stick at it and to commit to it, because otherwise you're just going to default back to what you traditionally do. Yeah,
and I feel like this, and I think this is something that's about all of our programming, and I wish I started this stuff a lot younger. Because I think there was probably a 10-year period of where I thought I was doing it right, but I probably wasn't. And I'm not saying criticizing, but I just think the value of being aware of this kind of thing earlier. You can start to erode some things that you develop as an adult when you're just testing stuff out. So anyway, so I did that 10-day program, and I came out, and peace was with me in a way that I've never known it.
So a distinct difference from how you went in to how you came out. You could feel the difference.
Marv, like I've never known peace ever.
Yeah, wow.
Like I've never been still.
Sure. Yeah.
At any point, and the idea of being alone by myself used to drive me into to do anything. That's probably why I was doing so much. Like if I had a day off, I would create something. Well, why? Yeah. And it's just like, no, because I got space and I can do more. And the thing is, for me, I have enough information to start something and enough don't give a fuck button to just push through and make it happen. Those two things can be quite dangerous, because if you justify it to yourself, there's no rules in terms of stopping.
Yeah, there's no limit. Yeah.
I don't have a fear that says that, maybe people won't like it. I'm like, no. If I feel that this is something that's attached to my values, my way of being, I'm off. I'm not seeking permission. So I think sometimes, filling space unnecessarily is a really, really problematic thing. And I learned to sit still and not have a thing to do, not have any conversation because there's no phones, there's no writing, there's no music, there's no TV, there's no audio, there's nothing.
Wow. Yeah.
Like there's nothing.
So would you say, were you even talking to yourself, or was that all in your head as well? Were you literally not speaking, not verbal for the whole 10 days?
Bro, a couple of times I'm talking to myself. You find yourself talking to yourself, like busting your own little moves in yourself.
Sure.
And I think I realized how strong my brain is. So in my mind, because the year had been so intense, I just had some really negative feelings towards some things and some people, and it was really strong in there, and that was the number one voice. And then I needed to speak to my EA because I needed to leave the country the day after I got out, because I was like, I'm going home the day I leave here. Yeah. So and I hadn't planned it because I didn't know what I was going to be doing. So I was speaking to my EA and I couldn't get hold of her. So then I rang my wife and my kids. I was like, can you just say this to my EA, because I can't. They're watching me on the phone like this, like staring at me like, who are you talking to? How long are you talking to him for? So I had to give her everything. Like, I'm so sorry, and can you please give her this message? I hope everyone's all right. And you hang up. But then because I spoke to my wife and kids, the thoughts in my brain changed. So for 2 days, I was seeing positivity and love, and I was seeing my kids frolicking in the grass while I'm calling them in for supper. All these things in my brain changes. So I realized that who you speak to, how you speak to them, for how long, changes your brain pattern. And so now I protect that also extremely violently, because when I have peaceful, loving conversations, oh my gosh, you start. Is it extra sunny outside today? You start changing your outfits. All those things go through your mind. Your diet changes. You're like, I'll just have some vegetables, please. Have you got anything vegetarian? Like, your mind just changes. And so it's interesting how much you rely on certain cravings to get you through times that are challenging. And so that can be food, that can be sex, that can be chocolate. It could be all these different things.
It's like different coping mechanisms.
Alcohol, talking to people that you think will probably make you feel good right now. They'll probably say nice things to you. And that shapes so much stuff, but it's not really authentic. So you just got to manage that and sit and learn to sit in it. So anyway, I come out and I'm making my way home via Egypt, but I'm still realizing that there's things from the old world that haven't really caught up or aware of where I'm at. And they're trying to engage me like it was 3 months ago. And one time I wrote one mad email, bro. I was like, hi, it sounds like you're trying to give me the gift of, I think it was the gift of disrespect. And and I'm just going to let you know that I am choosing to not accept this gift. I wish you all the best and I wish you peace. And I sent that bitch, and nothing, it was the most, I didn't have any afterthought. I was just like, oh, you're trying to send me, okay, cool. So, excuse me, sir. Just and I started dealing with people in that way and just not having conversations that I didn't need to have. And then you cut your whole connection points down, because in my phone, I have 4,500 phone numbers. It's wild. And every day I get about 1,000 WhatsApp messages, minimum. And so my contact points, and I'm not including Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn is wild. So, and emails are wild. So I realized that I'm just too spread thin. There's way too many communications. I need a structure, and I need people to help me run that structure in a really powerful way, because in many ways what I was doing is I had about 17 reports, direct relationship or stakeholders that I was working with every single day.
Okay, right, yeah.
And I'm running probably 60 projects, and so they were never going to be successful. It was never going to work. And this is why people have these really strict structures. Like you report into this person reports into you, and then that core group of people feed you information. And a part of me was like, no, I don't want to do that. I like people, man. And I do love people. I fucking love people. And so for me, I was like, that's not fun to do it that way. And I was like, yeah, but that's because it's not about being fun. It's about being efficient. And so I broke myself. And then because I didn't have empathy, when I'm making adjustments, it doesn't land with people. They're like, but you just had me at your house for dinner 2 months ago, and you just told me that. Strict, so, it's a massive, massive adjustment, and I don't really know where it's going to land, but I think I had to sign up to the idea that everything I have in my life right now could leave. Like, I don't want it to leave, but it could.
Yeah.
Because if I try to hold it all together, I think it will get me back to where I was.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not going back. That sounds like I was kidnapped.
I guess
in Iran or something.
But it also sounds like you're not allowing it to define you. Like, you're not allowing what you do to define you. What defines you is who you are, which I guess is how it should be. But like we've said, we're programmed this way. So we're so used to being conditioned in this type of way that we just accept that as the normal. And we don't ever challenge it. But you spent a solid 10 days of challenging that notion. And now you've come back like Neo from the Matrix, and you're just, you're in 2025, or you're light years ahead of us.
I'm ready. I'm still deconstructing, and I also I haven't come up with a really tidy bow as to surmise what that experience was and what it meant.
Okay.
I would say that I would advise any and everyone to do it, men and women, or people of all ages.
Sure.
And I think meditation is one of the most vital tools that I've ever discovered, because it does clear the palate. And I think actually sometimes I just over intellectualize things, and one of the values that I want to create is like a closeness to the laws of nature.
Okay.
And so I do think though is that when you live quite conceptually, and you live in your phone, and you live in because like when I talk about living in concepts, is like people see me as a man or a businessman and a black man and a dad and a husband, and so every single one of those comes with a set of rules about who I am and who I am not, what I can and can't do, and so you just find yourself narrowing your box slightly more.
Not defined by you either as well.
Yeah, and you live in people's minds in so many different ways, and I found actually quite a lot of people. It's not about who I am, it's either what I can do for them or what someone looks like me, they've experienced with someone that looks like me before.
Okay.
Like, have you ever had an argument with someone and you're like, I don't think you're arguing with me, I think you're arguing with like your dad or like an ex-boyfriend or someone, because you're super passionate, and I just said no, and the no is like consensual.
You can take it or leave it, but yeah 100%.
And the thing is like, I think because the empathy of those things were gone, I didn't have any empathy. Like, I'll just be like, oh, that's bullshit. What are you doing? Don't do that to me. I'm not interested in your da-da-da-da. And then they just get hurt on that point that you told them that you're not listening to their version of events. But, like, I also have a deeper awareness of, like, you're not arguing with me because I just said no, and that's okay.
Sure,
and so I think, there's a lot of not knowing, but the things I do know and the things that I'm protecting are those things just about myself now. And I'm moving at a much slower pace, a much simpler life. Like, there's things that I do that I don't think anyone fully knows. Vanessa, my EA, might be the closest to know the amount of things that I was doing. I don't think any single person knows the stuff that I do, because I do show up to a lot of things and a lot of people, more so because I just have a belief in blackness in a way of like, I remember being 19, which is the first time that I got my first wave of consciousness. And I remember being 19 and just someone taught me something, and I was like, oh, where were you? I needed this my whole life. And then someone comes in and give you an opportunity that you probably don't deserve yet, but because they've seen you around somebody, they're like, oh yeah, Marvyn can do it. And you're like, wow, this is coming together. And I not that I want to be that for people from an egotistical point of view, is that I know people need that.
Sure.
So I often
got that awareness to see it is what
just like someone to believe in you and take a bloody shot, like an authentic shot as well, not a shot that's like tiny marginal, like in the corner where you can't do damage. Like, come stand next to me, let's do some shit.
It's like getting your call up for the first team or something like
that. Yeah, like
you that old golden opportunity.
You're 17. You scored 2 goals in the championship, but you look like you're bagging it up. Come play. Come get your call up. It's a friendly, but come get a call up, bro. Come play for England. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean like there's a journey and there's a process to get incredibly good, confident, and powerful at the thing that you do. It doesn't just come because in your mind you're ready. So in my career, at maybe 23, I thought I was ready I wanted to read the department. Why am I not director yet? You know, I'll join a company 6 months in after learning the ropes. I'm like, why am I not promoted yet? You guys don't value me. I'm leaving. And I'll quit jobs because I didn't feel valued. But like, I'm 23 years old and I have no fucking experience. I have loads of ideas and that's it. But it just takes time. And then when I got to like early 30s, you know, I had one job and it wasn't even my biggest job in any way, shape or form. I was contracting somewhere and they just fully empowered and deferred to me for everything on this one subject area. Yeah. And so my confidence professionally just leaped. I was like, yo, I can command stuff. You know, you start saving accounts for growing the business and, you know, doing all these things. I remember we won this pitch and it was like 7 million and I was like, oh, I did that. 7 million.
Yeah, you did that.
And like, in my head, I was like, I could have done that at 19. But when you finally do it and everyone's like, thank you so much, Marvyn, your contribution, at that point, I'm done. I'm not. You come in with a slightly different outfit tomorrow. You start telling how big your team needs to be. Yeah. Like it just changed me, and I know what that is like when you think you're ready and you're not. But then you need a chance. Someone's got to take a chance on you, and then someone does, and then you may not actually be ready, and you may fuck up. And, you know, and all those people that did that for me, I don't think I necessarily paired with them. I never got hold of all of them. Okay. Some of them I did, but not all of them. And that's the thing that I'm going to do also. Is just like, thank you for taking that shot, because each one of those shots helped me. It's just fundamentally important part of the journey. So I know that's the thing. So when these things are not going the way I want, it's not personal. I just think we got to take a seat from each other for a bit and come back and have a conversation about it. And I think that's just the honesty of it, because I've made tons of mistakes and no one's ever thrown me over the coals for it. They've understood that, like, you know, maybe I gave you a bit too much, let's give you a little bit less. But it wasn't I'm not yelling at people, like, you know. So yeah, bro, it's just I've just gone into a mad one for an hour. I don't even know if this is useful to anybody at this point. I'm just now slightly talking to you.
I think it's amazing. I think even just to hear it, because you, like you said at the beginning, like, men don't do this. You know, we don't go through these transformational processes, and I feel like I don't know exactly why that is, but it's something that we need to do. And it might not always be a 10-day retreat, but we need to have that silence and that stillness and that meditation as well. I was even reading 50 Cent's book over the last week, and again, he meditates. He said that, you know, he was speaking to I can't remember who it was that he was speaking to, but there was someone anyway that he referenced that he spoke to, and they gave him a mantra and said, you should meditate. And now that's something he does every day. And even in my head, I'm thinking, what, 50 Cent meditating? But you know, he does it, and it adds value to his life. So, you know, it is really important.
That's really, really powerful, man. What about you though? Have you had these types of transformation or these moments where you've like tried to take these things? Is your midlife crisis come yet, or is it coming? If it's coming, well, I'm here, bro.
It's probably on its way. Yeah, no, I'm gonna reach out to you definitely. But do you know what's funny? Even as you were describing it, like when you said, like, you know, people giving you a call up and giving you a shot, you don't realize at the time that that's what's happening. It's only later that you realize actually that person was giving me opportunity. And I think even when I've been transforming, I probably think I'm more transformed than I am. Like, I think, okay, cool, I'm the finished article. 2 months later, a year later, something else happens, and I think, do you know what, shit, I've still got room, I've still got growth to do. And so it's an ever developing journey. But I've had therapy, I've done a lot of introspection. I feel like I've separated myself from like a lot of Western ideals at different points in my life, even friendship groups, because, you know, there's a point when you're younger that you're doing something that your friends are doing. So you're going to the gym, you know, you're pursuing a particular interest, a sport or a hobby because your friends are doing it. But then you go through that process where, well, not everyone does, but I went through that process of I'm prepared to go by myself. And then when more people want to know about it, they can ask me, and I'm that point of contact. I can direct them into doing it. Whereas, in my younger years, if the man them are going, then you're going. But if it's something you're doing by yourself, you're not going to do by yourself. So, yeah, I've gone through that kind of process, but I know there's still a lot to do. There's still a long way to go in terms of my own personal development. And I think that's the way I like to see it, that it is a journey, that it's not one particular destination where I can turn around and say I've arrived, but there's that continuous journey. And it is about taking those lessons as and when you can. Because if you reject the process, or if you reject a learning opportunity, you're just going to repeat it again. It's just going to come around in a different form. Yeah.
Do you know what's really, really important? So this came into my mind about a year ago, actually, and I never really shared it, but I realized that many people have an understanding of spirituality, their soul, the voice in their head.
Sure.
We had this conversation in a group once, and one of the guys was like, the voice in my head is me. And look, I need to be very mindful. I don't want to be disrespectful to people's processes and understanding, because no one really knows the answer, but work has been done in terms of these things. And the framework that I use it is that it's not me. I don't sign up to the idea that the voice in my head is me speaking. It's an echo, in my view. And so I think some people, especially men as well, because of the isolation at times or the solitude of masculinity, have sat there and had conversations with this voice in their head, talking back and forth to it, and come to a conclusion, and they believe that that's the work, and they believe that that's the conclusion of the point.
Sure, yeah.
But ultimately, you're dealing with echoes of your experiences. So, like, if your mum and dad yell at you when you're 5 and say, put the cookie down, you're fat.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to have a conversation with yourself in your head about, how do I look today? The fat voice is usually somebody that meant something to you, that has said that once.
Right, I get you. Yeah.
Projected into your mind. This is my understanding. And so sometimes people feel like they've come to conclusions on their own based on having conversations in their head.
Sure, yeah.
And my only invitation is not to make that wrong, because I don't have a definitive answer in terms of like the science says. I'm just saying, try different frameworks around, self-development, self-control, self-care, and just visit them. So it's almost like when you have a religion, my viewpoint would be like, learn the other religions. You may not have to, study them and practice them, but learn the other religions and understand how all of those connect or don't connect, or what the viewpoint of those things are, because it will sharpen your understanding of whatever it is that you do believe. And so when it comes to that...
Sorry, I was going to say, I think we spoke about a concept in the group about Johari's window. And the idea is you've got like your knowns, your known unknowns, your things that other people know about you, and then things you just don't know. And that's what you need to figure out. And it's like you said, it's who's that voice in your head? What is it saying? Where does it come from? Because it affects us. We listen to it, but we don't realize. And you need to analyze that. And therapy is very helpful at understanding those unknown unknowns in your life and bringing them to the surface so you can work through them.
Well, and then what's scary about that is, it's almost like, I feel like your emotions are driven usually by the voice in your head. Yeah. And so, someone says something, you feel it, the feeling becomes a voice, the voice then becomes a enhanced feeling, like you almost verify it in your echo.
Yeah.
And then, and then that can become an action or something you say. Like that process, because I think the feeling comes first, and then your mind is reacting to senses that your body has, and then it's like tells you like, oh, they don't think you're this, and you say that sentence in your head.
You start to rationalize it, definitely.
And then your body gets more angry or more sad or more nervous, and then that act turns into an action or something that you say, and often that isn't the case. Like sometimes I just think it's like, ask questions if you don't know. Like, it's such a powerful thing, and this sounds really patronizing, but like sometimes, like let's just say someone comes to you and someone says, one guy, I heard that Marvyn hates the other Marvyn on the podcast. He doesn't like his contributions, And so then you turn up to the podcast and you're like, "Wow, Marvyn don't like my podcast." I knew it, There was one time like you start looking for evidence,
and they only connect the dots and stuff.
Yeah, you ignore every phone call I made to you and be like, "I love doing a podcast with you," and now you only remember, the time that I was like late 10 minutes, and now it's like, yeah, you don't respect me, bro, because you turn up late that time, and, and so you build evidence on that basis, and then now you're on the podcast with me in the present, and I'm just like, yo, and you're like, nah, because you don't rate me, and you're acting this out now, and I'm like, wow, Marvyn's acting weird, and then I act weird, and so we're both acting weird, and if one of us at any point of being conscious of it, because not only you could have at the point someone said that, like, Marvyn, what, you don't like me on the podcast now, because I won't be on it if you don't like me, which is a simple conversation, and I'm like, right, Marvyn's being funny today. Rather than just ask you like, are you alright? Is everything cool? I'll be just like, right, he's being funny. All right, cool. Well then, fuck it then. All right, so this is Don't Black Dad podcast, money's mine, and then we're like, we're not good right now, and I feel like that happens so often.
And you know what's funny about that to me? I think because I sometimes describe myself as being confrontational. but not in a negative way. Exactly how you described it, as confronting an issue or a presumed issue in front of us. Whereas I think if you do the alternative and you say, okay, I'm not going to be confrontational, it lives in your head rent free, and you're just playing it over and over again. And like you said, you're looking at every little cue and you're assuming that there's a deeper meaning behind it, and you're getting yourself angry for no reason. When if you just confronted the issue, like you said, have you got a problem with me? And that person says no, it's over. Whereas if you just sit on it for months, it just festers in the back of your mind. And even if they didn't have a problem with you, now you've got a problem with them, and that's become a real issue.
Yeah. Powerful, man. Anyway, bro, sorry, we went way over, man. It was only meant to be doing 50
cool,
minutes.
Man. It was good. I feel like I went on a retreat now. It's definitely something I'm gonna look into. I'm gonna do that for myself. Did they do it over here as well, or do I have to go to the Lions too?
No. I would say do it somewhere where it's more spiritual, because I think it aligns in a different way. Obviously, I did mine in Western Cape, South Africa. They obviously do this all over the world. They do it across the whole continent, but they also do it in like Indonesia, all across Asia as well. But if you haven't got it, don't sit there and try and make it a big deal. Go and do that. And so I think there's one somewhere in the Midlands, I believe.
All right, okay.
It's a really nice centre as well, actually. But yeah, no, I think it's something that everyone should do. But more just like find your thing that brings you peace and go and do it. Yeah. And I don't mean like go play golf. I mean like things that have a framework attached, because I think that's the important part. Is that most of us live without a framework. Some people use religion, which is a good start. Yeah. But I think where religion has limitations is that it's been interpreted from an interpretation of an interpretation of interpretation of interpretation. Exactly. Yeah. Most of these teachings have been preserved in the exact same way that they were designed in the very beginning. And they're just more direction-y. It's not about the stories. And I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know much about religion anyway, but from what I understand when I read the Bible, it felt like lots of situations that they teach you what you should do and the moral of the story is. Sure. But the thing about that is that when you try to apply it in modern day context, it doesn't always directly transfer over. Yeah, and so
it's subjective as well.
Yeah, and it's obviously a lot of text, and it's just like, oh, in this situation, remember this, and you got to remember the haiku, or whatever, not a haiku, Lord Jesus, the
I know what you mean, but like the scripture and
like you got the haiku, wow, I'm gonna get stoned. You got to remember the exact quotable from the thing at the time, the passage that relates to the thing. Whereas like the framework is just more, it's universal, and then you apply it to every situation. And so I think sometimes those things are clearer, and that's what I found. I don't want to speak for other people, but were really, really clear for me. It was like one set of rules. You ask yourself these 5 questions in every scenario. If you're being these things, then you can be at peace with it. And if you're not being those things, then you have to repair on that basis of the thing that you're not being. And I just found that revolutionary at 30, because it meant that I knew exactly what to ask myself every single time, and I didn't need to chase for approval around from other people.
Yeah, I mean, no, that sounds dope. And I'm sure, as as we were saying, I think many people will listen to this and it'll be an awakening to them, because I suppose what it says is you need to be selfish to heal, because you can't serve others until you've taken care of yourself. Yeah. And so sometimes, although we're being the martyr and we're making the sacrifices, ultimately we're depleting our own resource. And if we want to be effective, we need to go away, recharge, and come back at our fighting best.
Yeah, real talk, man. Well, bro, thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure.
It allowed me to really share that stuff. I don't think I've really told many people much about it, so it's been nice to share it out loud. So I appreciate it.
No, man, I enjoyed it, man. Thank you for sharing.
Love, bro.